If you could choose one person in history to fight literally for your life, who would it be?
When you talk about who the baddest man on the planet is, the real definition of what that means, you throw two guys in a room and who comes out? Jon Jones is that guy right now.
For quite some time, Jon Jones has been widely considered to be the greatest mixed martial artist in history. Yet, despite all the achievements, there remains one shadow over his reign as the baddest man on the planet.
Hello, Jon. I just think I'm better than you. I just know that I can beat you in a fight.
I mean, if he doesn't take it, he's ducking. He's ducking. Tom Aspinall is the UFC heavyweight champion.
Because he's out here earning it.
As impressive as Tom is, he's not important enough yet to determine my schedule and my decisions.
His dismissive attitude toward the interim champion has completely turned the MMA community against him. And now, as public enemy number one once again, he's set to return to a fight that has ignited non-stop controversy among fans. In this edition of the UFC's annual pay-per-view card at Madison Square Garden, Jon Jones, the disputed heavyweight champion, will at last fulfill his apparent obligation to take on former champion Stipe Miocic.
Been there, done that, just there's one guy on the radar. I don't care about the title, I just want to fight Jon Jones.
I think you would be the first one to beat him.
You're damn right I would be.
I believe that I'm going to not only win this fight against Stipe, but I'm going to finish Stipe Miocic. I have zero doubt that I'll beat Stipe Miocic.
I'm just glad to see Jon Jones fight again. I mean, that's the thing. He doesn't fight often, and when he does fight, he's a big-time performer.
But the big question for me is what Stipe is going to show up. We haven't seen Stipe in a while.
Though this main event raises many eyebrows, here we are just a little ways away from UFC 309 on November 16th, so we may as well just embrace it. After all, it's a treat anytime we get to see these guys compete in the octagon.
I think they've got an interesting fight.
I think that Stipe-Jon Jones fight's gonna be more competitive than people think.
The real question is, what is it like when Jon fights a legit heavyweight that can do everything?
In the co-main event, Charles Oliveira continues his road back towards gold as he takes on Michael Chandler, who's finally moved on from Conor McGregor and is eager to show he's still a relevant contender in the lightweight division.
Charles Oliveira is the most exciting fighter in all of sports. He still wants to be the champion and he's got a shot against Michael Chandler. He's already beaten him before and now they get to have another dance in round 2 at Madison Square Garden. Michael Chandler's been waiting on the sidelines. He's going to be angry, he's going to be annoyed, and he's going to bring the fire.
Despite all the mixed feelings, this is a pretty significant event. And putting any overhanging thoughts aside, it's poised to deliver an unforgettable show.
I'm walking out with the belt wrapped on waist and new, and I'm just going to be in every aspect again.
I don't come to win, I come to dominate Stipe Miocic, and that's exactly what I am going to do.
Let's take an inside look into UFC 309. Since Charles Oliveira came into his own in 2018, he's brought a magnetic energy to every event, captivating the masses like few others. His inspirational underdog story, combined with his flashy, dynamic skills and an otherworldly ability to finish some of the best lightweights in the world, has been truly special to watch.
He was a guy who was kind of known as a guy who fell apart, and he just turned a corner and then became the baddest motherfucker in the weight class.
Yeah.
Not just the baddest motherfucker in the weight class, but one of the best motherfuckers in the sport.
This man is going into the fire. He is dominating and making the best fighters in the world seem pretty average.
Oliveira's next opponent, standing across from him at UFC 309, is the same one that ignited his championship run back in 2021. At the time, the UFC lightweight title was in a period of disarray, and the division was in need of a new king. And at UFC 262, the UFC newcomer Michael Chandler, who had been making a name for himself in Bellator and was coming off a devastating knockout over Dan Hooker in his promotional debut, was set to take on the most lethal contender in the division.
I think Charles has really evolved a lot, but that breaking point is still in there. And at some point, there's going to be a moment where he gets to choose, do I keep moving forward or do I just say, fighting for the title was enough for me, I don't need to be champion. For me, that moment will never come.
Quando eu entrei, eu lembro que eu falei que eu era um menino no meio dos leões, né? Hoje eu me sinto um leão no meio dos leões. Bellator é Bellator, UFC é UFC. Ele fez grandes lutas lá, é um cara duro, é um cara que faz acontecer, só que a gente tava falando de UFC, é uma nova história. Com certeza eu mereço bem mais do que ele.
Michael Chandler, known as an absolute juggernaut, had Charles in serious trouble early, and it looked like he was about to finish the fight in the first round. But just when it seemed like Chandler had all the momentum, Charles completely flipped the script and got the knockout right at the start of round 2.
Michael Chandler dominated the first round. It looked like he had Charles Oliveira done. But listen, we play the greatest game in the world. This is the best sport to known to man.
The champion had a name, and further set the division on fire by continuing his violent warpath against some all-time names. While his legendary run was halted by the reigning champ Islam Makhachev, and his hopes for an upcoming rematch were ruined by Arman Tsarukyan, he remains an elite contender and a tough puzzle to solve for the division. On the flip side, Michael Chandler's journey has been rooted in the idea that he's here for a good time, not a long time. Since his loss to Oliveira, he's only gone 1-2. But among those fights, he shattered Tony Ferguson's iron chin and gave fans a thrilling show against Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. And although he got caught up in the allure of a red panty night with Conor McGregor for nearly 2 years, Chandler remains a notable force in the division and is now eager to get back on track in his pursuit of UFC gold.
For me, this is personal. This is a revenge fight. Charles Oliveira stole my dream of becoming UFC champion. I beat Charles Oliveira, I become the #1 contender. And then I go win the title, where I finally get the opportunity to snatch Conor McGregor's soul. This is always the way it was supposed to be.
These two could fight endlessly, and it would always be a fun, explosive matchup.
Chandler and Oliveira are both fighters who like to pressure their opponents backwards and then overwhelm them with their power or just their offensive technique.
Chandler's one of those rare guys who is able to beat skill and technique with pure athleticism and power. And his best weapon in this one might just be to throw bombs at Oliveira and overwhelm him early like he did in their first fight, only this time not allow him to recover. Because as we saw in that fight, any little mistake will be costly, which just comes with the territory when facing someone as dangerous and technical in every area as Charles.
Charles Oliveira's a rough night out, not to mention it's a match they've already done. You don't get better at a sport by not doing it. Chandler's been on the sidelines waiting to do it. I gotta think that Oliveira is a meaningful favorite here.
Well, Mike was 1 punch, 10 seconds from becoming world champion when they fought in Houston back in the day. But that was Michael Chandler who was fighting. Yeah. Charles Oliveira is still fighting at the top of the game.
I think if Chandler doesn't finish him with heavy strikes within the first 2 rounds, he'll start to fade, make mistakes, and open the door for the most decorated finisher in UFC history to add to his record. When you match up 2 finishers this dangerous with defense that can be exposed, it's all about who capitalizes on the other's weaknesses first. This high-stakes rematch promises all-out action, and with the firepower both bring, it's hard to imagine the judges will be needed for this one. At the moment, the UFC heavyweight division has 2 champions. Jon Jones, who swiftly claimed the vacant undisputed title in March last year, and Tom Aspinall, the defending interim champ who rightfully wants his shot at becoming undisputed. While Jones versus Aspinall is the fight the fans are clamoring for, Jones and the UFC have opted to exacerbate an already problematic situation by granting Stipe Miocic the next shot.
Everybody in this room thinks Aspinall is more highly rated than Stipe at this point.
So what do? A guy who's looked at as the greatest heavyweight, this fight set up, Jon Jones gets hurt. Not his fault. So I should just shit on Stipe because Jon got hurt and not make the fight that he was already supposed to fight.
Jones and Miocic were originally set to fight at UFC 295 at last year's MSG card, but just a few weeks before, Jones was forced to withdraw due to injury, which opened the door for Aspinall to claim the interim title against Sergey Pavlovich. Yet a lot of fans were puzzled by this move since the promotion made it clear Jones versus Miocic would be rebooked later on, and the interim champ would either have to wait or defend his title.
What goes down in November?
Jon Jones, Stipe?
I'm so against that.
You want to see him fight Tom Aspinall?
Yes. Like, imagine him going out like that.
When you win the interim title, you get the next shot at the champion. This is the first time in UFC history where that hasn't happened, for special treatment for you because you want your fucking legacy fight against someone who's been knocked out in his last fight and has only had one fight in the last fucking 4 years by the time you actually get round to fighting him.
This fight has faced heavy criticism. Still, this remains a huge fight between two legends of the sport. Before moving to heavyweight, Jon Jones spent over a decade dominating the light heavyweight division with a record 15 title fight wins, cementing himself as the GOAT of the sport to many. Stipe Miocic, who's also been in the promotion for over a decade, established himself as the GOAT of one of the sport's most prestigious divisions, home to the baddest men on the planet, by defeating countless legends within it.
There has never been a fight that means more to me than beating Stipe Miocic. I don't think I've ever fought a GOAT, and people consider him the greatest heavyweight of all time. It means the world to me. I'm gonna look a lot better in my next fight. I'm gonna be lean and mean. I'm gonna be fast. I'm gonna be well rehearsed. And I've been training for Stipe for a long time already.
Stipe's back. He's seen Jones. He's seen his size. He's seen his length. He sees what he can do. As Stipe said, and I quote, "I'm gonna beat that ass."
I think just styles make matchups. I think, I have a style that doesn't match well with his style. But he does a lot of good things. He's good at his distance with his leg kicks and stuff like that. He's good on the ground. I think I'm good at making a fight. And I'm technical, but also I can make it into a brawl. I think it just depends who does what they want. And unfortunately, I don't like being told what to do, so I'm gonna do what I want.
There's no secret that Jon Jones is the favorite in this fight, and for good reason. He holds advantages in many areas, especially wrestling. However, who knows if his chest injury will have any effect. I have a feeling he'll aim for a similar game plan to what he used against Ciryl Gane, where he'd likely have good success out-grappling Stipe. Although Stipe isn't as one-dimensional as Gane, and even at this stage in his career, he can absolutely outstrike Jon.
This is a hard fight for both men. Jon Jones, as we know, technically brilliant in all areas. Doesn't have the heaviest hands, let's be honest, but he uses them very, very well to set up his takedowns. He's great in the clinch. He's got a good gas tank. The reality is, though, can he use his wrestling against Stipe Miocic? Stipe is an accredited wrestler. He's a very, very hard man to take down. A guy that's a natural heavyweight, that's been fighting at that weight for a long time, that's big, strong, and fast, and has good footwork and knockout power.
This main event at UFC 309 is more than just a fight. It's a battle between two greats, each with a legacy on the line. Will Jon Jones add another legend to his decorated resume, further solidifying his status as the greatest of all time? Or will Stipe Miocic shock the world, make history, and elevate his own legendary career by handing Jones his first real loss in the octagon? Whatever happens, it's guaranteed to be an absolute spectacle.